Good morning, everybody. My name's Ian Shepherd. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. I was just getting everything together. I am the owner of Right Start Newcomer Services. So we are a business in Halifax, Nova Scotia. But before we begin today's awesome English lesson, I just want to acknowledge that Right Start Newcomer Services conducts business in Chibuktuk, which is how you say Halifax in the Mi'kmaq language. This city is part of the ancestral unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. That means that when settlers came, the Indigenous people did not surrender their territory and instead signed treaties with Europeans. As a business, we're committed to upholding these treaties as we continue to build relationships between settlers, newcomers, and Mi'kmaq people. So, hi everybody, how's it going? I hope you're all doing well. It is a rainy day here in Halifax. So I thought it would be the perfect day to work on our verb tenses. Okay, so that will be the topic of today's lesson. I know it doesn't sound super exciting or super fun, but I think it's really important. And we will try to make today's lesson fun, educational. I hope you all learned something today. So if you're watching, please say hi. I'd love to know who's out there, how you guys are doing today, what's happening in your worlds. So I see Rodrigo's watching. Hey, Rodrigo, how's it going? How is life in Colombia these days? Canada's good. I mean, we're still dealing with the coronavirus, which has been going on for way too long, and it's affecting people's lives. But we're on the right track. We're getting lots of vaccines in people. I got my shot yesterday. I got the Pfizer vaccine. My arm is a little bit sore, so you won't see me dancing around too much today, but I'm feeling pretty good besides that. So thanks for joining, Rodrigo, and let me know how you're doing down there in Colombia. I think it's Colombia, isn't it? Or is it Chile? I forgot. Anyway, you'll let me know, I'm sure. So today's lesson, we have some really good stuff, and hopefully you'll get a lot out of today's lesson. As always, participate, ask questions, answer questions. If you're watching the replay after on YouTube or Facebook, you can ask questions later too, and I will get to those questions. Oh, sorry, I screwed up. Rodrigo is in Chile. Sorry about that. I was thinking Colombia. They both start with C, so that is my fault. Sorry about that. Okay, Chile. My brother lived in Chile for a while. He was, when he was a student, he lived there for about a year. He was on an exchange program, and he did some courses, and he worked down there for a while. Unfortunately, I've never been to South America. I would love to go. I'm making a lot of friends here from South America. So Rodrigo's in Chile. Bay, hey Bay. Bay is in Brazil. And oh, we have another viewer from Peru. So Rodrigo, Bay, and another Roberto. Okay, so Roberto is also in South America in Peru. So great. So someday I'll have to go check out South America. It's on my bucket list. A bucket list is something you want to do sometime in your life. Okay, so today's lesson, as I said, is about verb tenses. We're going to have a little discussion. What do you know about verb tenses? We're going to go over the verb tenses in English. So what are they and how are they used? Going to give you a few tips, and then we're going to do a good practice activity. I wrote a letter. You guys need to help me fix it. So if that sounds good with you guys, we'll move on. So let's just have a little discussion. What do you know about verb tenses? So I just thought of 5 questions. Choose one to answer, or you can answer multiple questions. So the first one, what is a verb? We can't talk about verb tenses if we don't know what a verb is. So if you can answer, tell me what is a verb. You can Google it if you want, or you can just tell me what you already know. Second one, what is a verb tense? So once we know what a verb is, then we can talk about tenses. What is a verb tense? Number 3, how many verb tenses are there? Okay, so that's a little bit tricky. And if you haven't studied English much, you might not know how many verb tenses there are. Can you name any of them? So you might be able to name a few. You might be able to name all of them. give me a few examples of the names of the verb tenses in English. And then finally, why is it important? Why should we spend our valuable time talking about this stuff and learning the different verb tenses? Okay, so starting to get some answers. So put your answers in the chat. You can answer one of them, all of them. It's up to you, right? I want to give you choices. So Rodrigo answered number 1. So what is a verb? A verb is a word, correct? That means action. Yes, very good, Rodrigo. So we think of verbs as action words, right? So go, play, do, study. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of verbs, right? So usually it does mean action, but not always, right? It can describe a state. So for example, I am a teacher. That's not really an action, but it describes who I am and what I do, right? So be, the be verb, is used to describe a state. Or for example, feel. You know, I feel hungry. It's not really an action, right? I'm not doing anything. I'm feeling something. So a verb is an action word, yes, and it's also a state. Very good. Okay, awesome, Rodrigo. Thank you for answering number 1. Wow, Rodrigo's rocking number 4. Okay, so Rodrigo is giving a list of different verb tenses in English. So past perfect, past simple, past continuous, present perfect, present simple, present continuous, future perfect, future continuous. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You got 8. So are there 8 tenses? You got a lot of them, and they're all exactly correct, Rodrigo. You rock that question. So is that your answer to number 3? Are there 8 tenses altogether? Awkward silence. Okay. So you got those, but there are a few more, and we'll talk about those later. Okay, so altogether there are 12 tenses we're going to talk about. Luckily, they're not all super important to learn. So we're going to focus on just 8 of them, but there are actually 12 altogether. So great answer, Rodrigo. Very good. How about number 2? What is a verb tense? What do we mean tense? What's a tense? Okay, I don't see any answers coming up, but basically tense is time, right? When are we talking about when we say something? Are we talking about the past? Are we talking about the present happening now? Or are we talking about the future? So tense is another way to say time or time aspect, okay? So when we talk about tense, we're talking about time. All right, so really there are 3 main tenses. There's past, there's present, there's future. There's 3 main tenses, but there are a lot of subtenses. You can think of them like. So altogether there are 12 types of tenses, but 3 main ones: past, present, and future. Okay, and hello, Amy. Hi, Amy. Thank you for joining. Welcome. I don't think I've seen you in the class before. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you get a lot out of today's lesson. Okay, let's talk about number 5. So why is it important to learn about tenses? Who cares, right? Who cares if you have good verb tenses, bad verb tenses, you make a mistake? Doesn't matter. In my opinion, it is kind of important, right? It might not be the most important thing, because usually mistakes in verb tenses don't get in the way of communication. You can still communicate very well without knowing all the verb tenses, right? And if you make a mistake, it's not a big deal. For example, if I say, yesterday I go to the store, you should say, yesterday I went to the store. But it doesn't make a big difference, right? People can still understand that yesterday you went to the store. So a lot of the times verb tenses don't matter as much as some other things, right? Doesn't matter as much as pronunciation, right? Because if you have a pronunciation mistake, they don't understand what you're talking about. But if you have a verb tense mistake, they still get it, they understand. They just know that maybe English is not your first language. So you might tend to make mistakes with those tenses. Great. And Rodrigo, to have proper communication. Okay, that is a good answer for number 5. So we want to speak properly. We want to write properly. It might help us, do better if we're living in a country like Canada. Might help us get a better job, write a better cover letter or resume. But, day to day, it doesn't have as big of a difference in your life as some other things. But I still think it's important to learn about the tenses, to practice using the right tenses, because you're right, it makes your communication better. Okay, awesome. So let's move on. I just answered these questions myself. We talked about these already. So a verb is a word used to describe an action or state. Verb tense refers to when an action took place. 3 main tenses, so past, present, future. And then we have aspects. So aspects are things like the simple, the perfect, the progressive or continuous, and then the perfect continuous or progressive. So for number 4, I wrote the 3 main tenses, past, present, future. And then you have all of the aspects, simple, progressive, which is the same as continuous, but we're going to be using progressive for the rest of today's class, the perfect and the perfect progressive. And then finally, number 5, we want to be understood and we want to speak and write correctly. Okay, awesome. So let's make this a little bit larger so you can see it. Here are all of the 12 tenses. I have color-coded them. So the green ones, I think, are the most important ones to learn. The red ones, not so much, because those are not used nearly as much in English. So the present tense is used the most. So those ones we use quite often. The past is used the next most, and then the future is used the next most. So let's go over one by one very quickly the different verb tenses and the ones that we're going to focus on today. So let's start with the past. There are 2 past tenses that I want to focus on, the simple past and the past progressive or past continuous. So I just gave example sentences so you can compare what the different tenses look like. For the simple past, she went to the store yesterday. So we take the verb go, change it to the past tense, and then we have a proper past tense sentence. She went to the store yesterday. And we'll go over these in more detail, okay, as we go. The past progressive, she was going to the store when she saw an accident. So often we use the past progressive with a simple past in the same sentence. So she was going, this is something that was ongoing in the past, and then something else happened. So we use that fairly often, not all the time, but once in a while. The past perfect and the past perfect progressive, we don't use those nearly as much. So you can read it, you can study it a bit, but it's not used very often. So she had gone to the store by the time he got home, or she had been going to the store until last week. So it's something in the past that was ongoing for the progressive or had finished for the past perfect. Anyway, let's move on. So present tenses, that's where you really want to focus because we use present tenses all the time. Simple present sounds easy. but it's actually one of the harder ones to learn. She goes to the store every day. So it's not something she's doing right now. It's something that is a habit. She does it every day, or sometimes, or never. Okay, so simple present describes habits. Present progressive is used to describe something happening now. She is going to the store now. Make sense? Present perfect, it's something that is usually finished, but it happened before now. And there's some connection to the present. So she has gone to that store before. Maybe we're walking by the store and we see the store and we say, oh, she has gone to that store. So happened sometime in her life. And the connection to now is that now we see that store. We're walking by the store, so we're looking at it. And then we have the present perfect progressive. She has been going to that store lately. So something that started in the past and is continuing in the present. Don't worry if you don't understand all these right now. We're going to talk about them in more detail. Finally, we have the future. We have simple future. She will go. So usually the future is made using the word will, and then just the base form of the word. She will go to the store later. She will be going to that store. Some ongoing future action, right? She will be doing that thing in the future. And then finally, the future perfect and the future perfect progressive. You can study it, but we don't really use it that much. She will have gone to the store by 5 p.m. And future perfect progressive, she will have been going to the store for years by next week. Sounds a little awkward. That's because we don't use it a whole lot. So I just wanted to show you all together, all the 12 tenses. You can take a screenshot. If you go to the website after the lesson, you'll be able to download these slides. So you will have them. You can put it on your wall. You can play around with it, maybe make a game out of it. There are different ways to study, and we'll go over some tips later. So any questions about this chart? Again, the colors mean how often we use them. So green ones we use a lot. The red ones, not so much. So I wouldn't worry about those ones a whole lot. Anybody still there? Anybody still awake? Are you sleeping because verb tenses are so boring? Or maybe it's just a rainy day like it is here in Halifax. Okay, I don't see any questions. You can ask them as we go. Okay, let's go one by one, the 8 main tenses that we wanted to cover today. So, simple past. Can you give me a simple past sentence in the chat? So think of the past, think of something maybe you did yesterday, and tell me about it. Or 2 years ago, 10 years ago. Tell me something that happened in the past. I would love to hear it. I'll give you an example. I got my shot yesterday. I ate pizza last night. We went to the lake after work. Okay, awesome. So Jesus or Jesus says, I went to the store last week. Perfect. So that's great. Don't forget your period at the end. Something that happened last week, and he used the proper past tense of the verb go. So I went to the store last week. That is the simple past tense. So awesome example. Jesus. Rodrigo says, I ate an apple this morning. Perfect. So past can be the same day, right? It can just be earlier in the same day. In the morning, if it's late in the morning now or in the afternoon, doesn't have to be the day before or months or years in the past. So that is perfect. Way to go, guys. I will give you another example. So we talked about this. It's used to describe an action or state that was in the past and that is completed. It's no longer happening. So, for example, Rodrigo is not still eating his apple. His apple is finished, it's done, it's in the past, right? Same as Jesus. So Jesus says, I went to the store last week, it's finished. He's not at the store anymore. That is a completed action in the past, so we'll use the simple past tense. So my example sentence, she wore a dress yesterday. It's also good to think of the question form. So that's where people get a little mixed up. Sorry, I forgot my question mark. Bad teacher. There we go. So what did she wear yesterday? So when we make a question, we have to use the past tense of do. So what did she wear yesterday? So that is the do goes in the past. That's the helping verb. And the main verb wear stays in the present. So what did she wear yesterday? And don't forget your question mark like I did. Oops, I lost it. Oh, there it is. Okay, and the negative. It's also good to practice the negative form of that tense. So our sentence, she wore a dress yesterday. The negative form would be she did not or didn't wear a dress yesterday. And usually in English, we use the contraction. So contraction is two words together. Instead of saying did not, usually we would say didn't. And even in writing, most writing, you would use the contraction too. So we've got a sentence, we've got the question, we've got the negative. We know the past. Often it helps to, demonstrate this on a timeline. For example, let's say this is time. This is the past. This is the future. And this is right now. So we've got the past, we've got now, we've got the future. The simple past would happen at some point before now. So it could be yesterday, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, but we can see very clearly it's not still happening today or right now at this moment. Amy says, I walked a kilometer yesterday. That is perfect. So walked is the past. If you want to practice, you can try making a question, or you can try making a negative sentence in the past. So that's a little bit trickier than just making a regular simple past sentence. To make the simple past properly, you have to know a lot of irregular forms of the past tense. So, for example, wear. The past tense is wore. Regular verbs are easy because usually we just add ed. So, for example, walk. To make the past, we just put ed at the end. So walk is a regular verb, wear is irregular. And I would recommend memorizing the most common irregular words. So there might be 20, 30, 40, 50 that we use a lot. You have to memorize the past tense of those verbs, okay? Okay, let's move on. Talk very quickly about the past progressive. So past progressive is used to describe an ongoing activity in the past. Activity is often interrupted by another action. So, can you make a sentence using the past progressive? So, make a sentence, make a question, or make a negative sentence. Okay, so I'll wait for those comments to come in. This is a good chance for you to practice your past progressive. Rodrigo beat you guys to it. I think he has an advantage because YouTube, I think I see the YouTube comments a little bit faster than I see the Facebook comments. So Rodrigo wrote, "We were driving the car all night." Okay, perfect. Great sentence. Forgot your period, that's okay. We're driving. So to make the past progressive, we use the past tense of the be verb plus a verb with ing. So Rodrigo got it perfect. Okay, great job, Rodrigo. Here's my sentence. John was walking home when it started raining. So like I said, it's often interrupted by another activity that happens while something else is happening. So he was walking home and then something happened. It started raining. Negative. John wasn't walking home when it started raining. And the question, was John walking home when it started raining? So notice for the question, often the subject comes in a different location. So in this case, it comes between the helping verb was and the main verb walk or walking. So this is a good thing to practice. Practice making sentences, negative sentences, and questions. And Jesus says, I was watching TV last night. Very good. So that's perfect. If we wanted to draw a little line like we did before, so here's our timeline. This is right now. Past progressive was an ongoing action. So something that took place for a period of time in the past. And then maybe something interrupted it, right? So he was walking home for a period of time, and then it started raining. Oh, Amy's rocking it too. Okay, I was finishing my meal when the doorbell rang. Perfect sentence, Amy. That's great. So again, it was going on for a while. The meal was taking a while, and then something happened to interrupt the meal. So then they had to stop eating. Any questions about the past simple or simple past or the past progressive? Because we're going to move on to the present tenses in a sec. Excellent. Okay, now we made it to the present tenses. So the simple present. It's used to describe habits, facts, ongoing activities. Maybe things that happen every week, every day, things that never happen, things that sometimes happen. So, can you give me a sentence, question, or negative sentence using the simple present? I'll give you an example. We sometimes watch movies. We never go to South America, unfortunately. What else do you say? She doesn't speak Chinese. Okay, so these are all examples of the simple present. I don't see any examples in the comments, but you can put those in as we go. Here's an example. We eat fish every Monday. We don't eat fish ever. Or question, do you eat fish? So we need to use helping verb, again, to make the question and also to make the negative. So it's not we not eat fish. You have to say do. We don't eat fish. He doesn't eat fish. And the question, do you eat fish? Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. We've got some examples. Rodrigo says they are a happy couple. Very good. So that is the simple present form of the verb be. They are a happy couple now, and probably they have been happy for a long time. Okay, very good, Raphael. Jesus, Maria doesn't washes her clothes on Sunday. You're so close. So Maria doesn't, let's say, wash. So don't say washes. I'll write it here. Maria doesn't wash her clothes on Sunday. Period. Okay. So we have doesn't. So that's how we make the negative form of the simple present. But we don't put es. So we change this. We change do to does, but don't put es for wash. So if you have the normal sentence, Maria washes her clothes on Sunday, that is correct. We have to put es, but we already put es on do to become does. So we change the helping verb, not the main verb, when we make the negative form of the simple present. I hope that makes sense. Great. And Amy has a good sentence. Are you a vegetarian? So that's a question. Me, mostly, yes, I'm a 95, 98% vegetarian, but that's a great question. And another sentence from Amy, I do not eat meat. Perfect. Okay, so that is the negative form of the simple present. Very well done, Amy. And Jesus says, okay. Great. So for the simple present, usually either it's something that happens, so here's now, regularly. So if I say we eat meat every Monday, this is last Monday, this is the Monday before, here's the Monday before that, and these are future Mondays where we're probably going to eat meat again in the future. So simple present is repeated actions or things that are always true. Simple present can also refer to right now. So sometimes if you say something like, I feel happy. So we are using the simple present to talk about a state that's happening right now. Right? So I feel happy right now. So we are using the simple present to talk about a state right now. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Very good. Let's move on. Let's talk about the present progressive. So this is used to describe actions that are happening now or possibly in the future. So put it in the chat. Give me an example of the present progressive, a sentence, a question, a negative sentence. So before I show you my examples. We love cooking barbecue every weekend. So almost. Actually, that is just the simple present. So we love doing something, or we love to do something. So actually, that is the simple present, Rodrigo. And you're referring to every weekend, not what's happening right now. But good try, very close. Amy has a good example. We are attending your session. Very good. So to make the present progressive, you use the be verb, is, are, or am, and then you have the ing form of the verb. So this is happening right now. Very good, Amy. Are you sure English isn't your first language, Amy? Because you're doing really well today. So here's my examples. Sarah is listening to her favorite music. Negative, Sarah is not or isn't listening to her favorite music. And the question, is Sarah listening to her favorite music? Okay, so to make it, like I said, we use the be verb. Some form of the be verb, whether it's am, is, or are, plus the main verb with ing attached to the end. So we have the be verb and then the main verb and then ing at the end of that verb. Okay. And notice the formation of the negative. Sarah is not or isn't listening to her favorite music. A lot of students say something like Sarah doesn't listening to her favorite music, but that's not how you make the negative form of the present progressive, right? You have to use the be verb. Sarah is not or isn't listening to her favorite music. And then to make the question, is Sarah listening to her favorite music? So again, our line here, this is now the present progressive is happening now. Maybe it started in the past and is continuing into the future, but the main thing is it's happening right now. That's the most important part. Good, we're about 3/4 of the way, over halfway through now. Present perfect. Present perfect is a little bit tricky. Okay, so we'll spend a few minutes talking about the present perfect. It's used to describe actions that began or happened in the past, but they may have some connection to the present. So, could be they're totally done, they're finished, but something is connecting them to what's happening now. Okay, maybe that will make sense as we give some examples. So again, put your examples in. You can put a regular sentence, a negative sentence, or a question using the present perfect. To make the present perfect, you use have or has plus the past participle form of the verb. Okay, past participle is basically the third form of the verb. So maybe when you study English, you remember 3 forms of the verb. For example, we'll say see. Second is the past tense, saw. And the past participle is seen, right? So the verb is see. Second form is the past saw. And then third form is seen. That is called the past participle. So nobody's giving any examples. I'll share my examples. Lou has seen many movies. So again, we're using the past participle form of the verb. Lou has seen many movies. When? We don't know. Sometime in her life, right? Maybe it's important for now because we're talking about movies, right? We're all talking about movies. We're having a coffee and talking about movies. And then maybe we say, oh, Lou has seen many movies because we're talking about movies now, but the actual action took place in the past. Lou has not or hasn't seen many movies. That would be the negative form. And the question, has Lou seen many movies? So for the present perfect, possibly it happened in the past, but we don't say when it happened, right? You wouldn't say Lou has seen many movies 2 years ago. That wouldn't make sense. We would say Lou saw many movies 2 years ago. So maybe the action took place in the past, but it has some connection to the present because we're talking about movies now. Here's an example from Rodrigo. She has driven her new car every day. Yeah, you could say that. So every day she has driven her new car. The action took place in the past, but it's important for now because we're talking about her new car. Okay, that makes sense. We use present perfect a lot, right? We use it very often, usually to say things that, have already happened, things that have taken place, but also we use it in reference to now. For example, I could say, I have been a teacher for, 20 years. I started teaching in the past, and I'm still a teacher. So I have been a teacher for 20 years. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Again, don't worry too much if you don't get it. You can review this lesson, and there's so many resources online to help you practice these. Finally, the last present tense we're going to cover is the present perfect progressive, used to describe actions that began in the past that still continue to the present. And it's important that we let the person know that those things are still happening right now. So to make the present perfect progressive, you can write your examples in the comment section. We use have or has. We use been. So that's the present perfect part. And then the progressive is the verb plus ing. Have been doing, has been watching. There's all kinds of sentences we can make with these. So you can put your examples in there. I'll share mine. They have been eating for hours. So they started eating in the past, and they're still eating now. Really, I want to tell people how long, right? It's important to tell them how long they have been eating. It's different from they have eaten, right? If I say they have eaten, it's finished, right? They did it in the past, but it's some connection to the present. When I use present perfect progressive, we know it's still happening now. So it's still an ongoing action. They have been eating for hours. Here's the negative. They haven't been eating for hours, maybe only a short time, maybe only minutes. And the question, have they been eating for hours? Okay, so we use this quite a bit. It's not super frequent in English, but we do use it quite often. And we have an example here from Rodrigo. I have been searching for this suite since last year. Very good. So that's perfect. Suite or suit? Suite, maybe. So a suite is like maybe an apartment or a hotel room. But that is a perfect usage of the present perfect progressive. So thank you for that, Rodrigo. Awesome job. And let's draw our little line. So present perfect progressive started happening in the past and continues until now. And maybe we want to say how long that activity has been taking place. It is very similar. It's very close to the present perfect. But whereas sometimes the present perfect is finished, this one is still happening in the present. So it still continues. And Amy says she has been working since morning. Very good. So she started working maybe 2 hours ago and continues to work at this time. So perfect, Amy. Great job. You guys are amazing. And we just have 2 more, and then we're going to move on to our final activity. Simple future is pretty easy to understand. It's used quite frequently in English. It's used to describe actions that will happen in the future. And to make it, usually we use the word will plus the verb. Doesn't have to be will. I mean, you can use other words like might, could. What else could you say? May. So there are other words besides will, but usually we use the word will plus the verb to make the simple future. For example, we could say Bob will buy a new house next year. Negative, Bob won't buy or will not buy a new house next year. Question, will Bob buy a new house next year? Pretty simple. Pretty simple to make the simple future. So any examples, throw them in the chat, and it's super easy to understand. So here's now, these actions are going to take place at some future time. Okay, anybody still there? Any questions about the simple future? And the last one we're going to talk about today is the future progressive or future continuous. So this is used to describe ongoing actions that will occur or happen in the future. So we make this will plus the be verb, and then the verb with ing. Again, we could use other words besides will. We could say could, might, may, those types of words. So you can give me an example in the chat. Here's my example. I will be working for myself in 2 years. So I will be doing this thing, an ongoing activity at this point in the future. Negative, I won't be working for myself in 2 years. Question, will I be working for myself in 2 years? I don't know. So again, to make it a bit easier to understand or visualize, something that will start in 2 years, say, and will continue for a period of time. So it will be an ongoing action in the future. So those are the tenses we're going to talk about today. So quickly, let's just go back here. So we covered these ones. We covered simple past. It's important we know that one because we use it a lot. And the past progressive. For the present tenses, we did simple present, present progressive, present perfect, and the present perfect progressive. And for future, we looked at these two, simple future and future progressive. Doesn't really matter if you know the names. So don't get too hung up on, oh, this is this one and this is that one. It's more important that you actually understand how they're used and you're able to use them properly. Okay, so let's move ahead to talk about tips, and then we're going to do our final activity, and then you guys can do whatever it is that you do for the rest of the day. Okay, now we have an example here. So Rodrigo, we won't be living in Chile anymore. Okay, so that is the future negative, right? So that is the future progressive in the negative form. So we will not or we won't be living in Chile anymore. Okay, perfect example. Is that true? Are you leaving Chile? Come to Canada. We'd love to have you here, Rodrigo. Okay, so just a few tips for learning verb tenses. One is to pay attention. So if you're listening to English, if you're watching an English movie, if you're reading something in English, just sometimes pay attention to what verb tenses they use, right? Are they using the simple present? Are they using the past? Why do they use that one in that situation? And start to think about, why are they using that particular tense? Also pay attention to the negative form and the question form, because that's where students often get tripped up a little bit. Don't try to learn them all at once, so don't spend a lot of time memorizing them. Learn them bit by bit. And also practice the ones that are used the most. So simple present, present progressive, simple past, simple future. Those are the most commonly used, but the perfect tenses are also used quite a bit. Practice using them. So be creative. Practice using some of the different tenses in your writing and in your speech. Ask people to correct you. So if you have friends that are native English speakers or that speak English really, really well, ask them to help you. And if you make a mistake, ask them to correct you. You might be a little embarrassed, but over time that will really help to improve your verb tenses. Next one, find resources online or in the library. So just Google, verb tense activities, practice, something like that. Look up a grammar book in your library. Those can really help you too, because they give you focused practice on those verb tenses. Start with the most common ones. We talked about that. And drawing pictures like we did with the timelines, that can help you understand when you actually use them. So any questions about these tips before we move on to our final activity? Oh, one more. Practice making sentences, negative sentences, and questions. We talked about that. All right, so for our last activity, you are going to help me. I wrote a letter, and unfortunately, I made a lot of mistakes. So there are 13 mistakes in this letter. Let's look at the letter, and I want you to help me find those mistakes. So I hope this isn't too small. I hope you can read it. I can make it a little bit bigger so you can see. That didn't do anything. Basically, it's the same. Okay, so I wrote this terrible letter. Dear Samantha, how are you doing? We are all really good. Last week, Jim graduated from high school. He got really good marks. Liz didn't very well in school, but her hockey team were play in a tournament, and they winning the whole thing. They have win 5 tournaments altogether. We has been do lots of family things together these days. I want to tell you that we will coming to visit you this summer. In July, we leaving Halifax and will arrive in Toronto by July 15th. We are planned to visit you for 2 or 3 days. Is it okay with you? Please letting me know if it's okay or not. Talk to you soon, Jan. So what I want you to do is find a mistake, write the correct sentence or question or whatever in the box, and there should be 13 mistakes altogether. All of them are about the verb tenses. So throw them in the chat box. We'll go one by one, fix up our letter. So Rodrigo has the first one. How are you doing? Very good. So problem is no be verb. So to make the present continuous, we need that be verb, right? If we don't have that be verb, then we are not correct. So that's the first mistake. How are you doing? Okay. How are you doing? You got it, Amy. So that is the first one. Can you find any other mistakes? Don't need to go in order. If something jumps out at you that looks like a mistake, throw it in the chat. Graduated, very good. So that is the past, simple past. Jim graduated from high school last week. All right, great job, Amy. That's 2. We need 11 more, and then our class will be finished. This might take us all day. I hope not. Okay, anybody else? Okay, so Liz didn't score very well. Yeah, we're talking about her grades. So you're right, Rodrigo, that is the problem. But let's say do very well. Score is similar, but maybe sounds a little bit better to say didn't do very well. Okay, anyway, you got the mistake. Very good, Rodrigo. Something is wrong with the hockey team. So let me see. Do very well. But her hockey team were play in a tournament. Something is wrong. Something is wrong with that sentence. Let's just say this is a mistake. We could just say, but her hockey team played, because it's in the past. Played in a tournament and they won. We're playing. Yeah, we could say we're playing. Either one. We could say played, or we could say we're playing. Either one. So were playing or played, I think either of those work well. So very good, Rodrigo and Amy. Amy says yes. And Amy says, okay, very good. Anything else? How about this one? Oh, sorry, I almost gave you the answers. And they... So let's say her hockey team were playing in a tournament and they, past tense of winning, let's say won the whole thing. And Amy got it. Very good, Amy. So we got it. That should just be the simple past. Okay, awesome. This one. Maybe Amy was talking about this one too. They have won. So present perfect. Won is the past participle. So they have won 5 tournaments altogether. They have been winning 5 tournaments altogether. I think because we say altogether, in total, they have won 5 tournaments. So those are not, in progress right now. So they're not still playing the tournaments. The tournaments are finished. So let's just say they have won 5 tournaments altogether. But very good attempt. We have been very good. So instead of we have been doing almost. Jesus. Okay. So very close. Instead of we have been do, we just say we have been doing lots of family things together these days. Now I think we're good for the first part, the first paragraph. Let's move on to the next paragraph. I want to tell you. I want to tell you. So when you have want is simple present, and then followed by another verb. We need to say, I want to tell you. I want to tell you that we will. Very good, Rodrigo. So you got it. I want to tell you that we will. Okay, don't see any answers. Just put come. Okay, you can say that also. We will come, or you could say we will be coming. Awesome. So that is the future continuous. Good job, Rodrigo. Either way, it's the same. We will come, or we will be coming to visit you this summer. Great job. Hey, Winnie, great job. You can say come. Nice to see you today. Yeah, great. So we will come. We will be coming to visit you this summer. In July, we leaving Halifax. Either way, I know we're running out of time, so you could say we are leaving, or you could also say we will leave Halifax and will arrive in Toronto by July 15th. We are planning. So instead of we are planning to visit you for 2 or 3 days. It is okay with you? No, it's not. Is it? remember we have to reverse the order of the helping verb, the main verb in this case, and the subject. Is it okay with you? Please let me know if it's okay or not. Talk to you soon, Jan. And now I think we got it. So the proper paragraph and letter should read like this. So, dear Samantha, how are you doing? We are all really good. Last week, Jim graduated, so we got that one from high school. He got really good marks. Liz didn't do very well in school, but her hockey team played in a tournament and they won the whole thing. They have won 5 tournaments altogether. We have been doing lots of family things together these days. I want to tell you that we will come to visit you this summer. In July, we are leaving, or we will leave Halifax and will arrive in Toronto by July 15th. We are planning to visit you for 2 or 3 days. Is it okay with you? Please let me know if it's okay or not. Talk to you soon, Jan. So that is the practice activity that I came up with. So it is good to read your own writing carefully. You can find other activities like this where you fix the mistakes, but this is really good practice for helping to cement the verb tenses in your mind and how we use them properly. So I hope this activity and today's lesson was useful. Just to review, we covered what do you know about verb tenses. We talked about the 12 different verb tenses in English. I gave you a few tips for learning verb tenses, and then we practiced correcting that letter. If you want to get more practice, feel free to send me an email. So write an email in English, practice using some of the verb tenses, and I'll do my best to help you correct that email, and that will help you improve your verb tense usage even more. So that's it for today. Sorry for keeping you a little bit long. Again, my name's Ian. My business is Right Start Newcomer Services. I will see you soon. We will have another lesson on Monday next week. So hopefully you can join us on Monday morning, and then every Mondays and Thursdays we have these lessons. So thank you so much for coming out. Really good to see you. You're very welcome. Thank you for coming. Amy says, great session. Thank you for saying that, Amy. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you come back next time. Rodrigo says, great lesson. Thank you, Rodrigo. See you Monday, and you're very welcome, Winnie. So, see you guys. Have a great weekend. See you.